Is there going to be more rappers like YoungBoy, or is he just a particularly unique case?
The MASA album in itself, I would say, was probably more polarizing.
He's like a brand risk in a unique way. It's not like you're going to see YB in a Ruffles commercial.
But the interesting thing about him is he has no diamond records.
Man, look, to put a bow on it, man, fuck all this number talk, bro.
I'm sorry,
the
Jordan,
fuck out of
I had
me.
to pull up the
This is
stats.
an opinion-based sport. I know everybody wants to put the metrics to it. Fuck that, bro. This is rap.
My name is Insanul Ahmed, and there's two things I love: rap and arguing about rap. And if you're a rap fan like me, you know there's certain arguments we love to have again and again. The first one is, who's your favorite rapper? Now, your favorite rapper is completely subjective. It can be a newcomer, can be a veteran, could be underground, could be mainstream. It is completely up to you. Now, there's a second argument we love to have, and that's the GOAT conversation. Who is the greatest of all time? But that's a conversation that looks at catalog, impact, legacy, and is really a historic conversation for people who've really done their homework about the history of rap. But there's a third conversation that really gets the people going, and that's the question of who is the best rapper alive. And the best rapper alive is the person who's in that perfect flow state. They mastered their craft, they've captured the audience at large, and their personal narrative has become a part of the zeitgeist. Being the best rapper alive is kind of like being the rap MVP or wearing the championship belt. But unlike sports, rap does not have a rigid cultural calendar. There is no big fight or Super Bowl to determine who the winner is. Being the best rapper alive is really a feeling that this person is at the center of the genre. And that feeling is what this podcast is all about. So for our first episode, we're crowning 2025's best rapper alive. And this artist is the definition of a cult hero. He's not the most famous rapper. He's not the most innovative rapper. He's not even necessarily a mainstream artist. But despite all that, he's got more plaques than any other rapper before or since. He just finished a sold-out stadium tour where fans screamed every word along with him. He's a soul-bearing artist who releases music at a relentless pace. And last year, it became obvious that he was the voice of a generation. Because in 2025, YoungBoy Never Broke Again was the best rapper alive. And we're going to tell you why right now.
So how does it feel to make best rapper alive for 2025 for Complex?
Feels awesome, and I'm so honored.
All right, welcome to the show, Best Rapper Alive. I have two great guests with me today. I got my man to the left, Complex's music editor, Dimas Sanfiorenzo. Did I say that correctly? I feel like
Sanfiorenzo.
Sanfiorenzo.
That's close enough.
Close
I'll
enough.
take it.
All right.
Yeah.
Well, I know a lot of people butcher my name. And to my right, I've got the most hardest working man in show business, fresh off a vacation that he worked all the way through. Our senior editorial content producer, Jordan Rose.
Yes, sir.
Thank you guys for joining me. Okay, so I want to set up the table a little bit on this. So, Best Rapper Alive is something we started back in 2013, where we named the best rapper alive for every year since 1979, and we've updated every year since. And one of the things about it is some of the years are very obvious. When we did the year 2003, it was 50 Cent, hands down, there was no debate. And there's other years where there is a lot of debate. And I think of 94, it's like, is it Nas, is it Biggie? 98, is it Jay, is it DMX? Last year, when we were choosing YoungBoy to be the best rapper alive, there was a lot of debate. We had a very heated debate amongst ourselves between YoungBoy and Carti. Dimas, where did you fall in this conversation?
Well, I fell under YoungBoy, which is the correct answer. I love Carti. And yeah, I think going into these conversations, it always felt like a two-horse, or like kind of like, there was only two obvious choices, right? It was either YoungBoy or Carti, because when you're talking about best rapper alive, obviously you're talking about their talent as a rapper, but you're talking about how they hit the zeitgeist. You're talking about popularity, heat, and all of that. And, a lot, if you look at the metrics, a lot of them were very similar. Both had like these like very big, almost messy, but like albums that were very specifically towards their fan base. And then both had like huge tours, right? Carti had the Opium tour, and obviously YB had Make America Slam Again tour. I ultimately thought it was YB because I felt like the cultural impact of just, well, one, there's like a redemptive arc to it, right? He obviously, the last couple of years, YB have not been, he's been just legal troubles, and he's locked up and all this other stuff. And then so to come from being on house arrest and within a span of a couple months, just like touring the country with like one, I wouldn't say the most successful album he's had on the charts, but one that feels like culturally significant, especially within his base. And you just saw all of this kind of like pent up energy and pent up excitement really like manifesting itself in a way that like I just didn't see with Cardi, right? Even though Cardi had like a hugely successful year, music, felt like dominated the first quarter and then kind of maybe fell off a little bit.
Well, I think for Cardi, he's been doing it for the last 5 years. I think up to Whole Lotta Red, back in 2020, he had that kind of mainstream breakthrough in a sense where like people realized how big he was. In the last 5 years, he's just become this mainstream, but not, he's at the Grammys, but he's wearing a mask. He's like, he plays all these big events. He is in that place. But to your point, like, I think with YB, there was that pent up energy, which for Cardi, it's not kind of the same because he's had a little bit more going for him for the last few years where it didn't feel like he was moving backwards. It felt like he was expanding his base. Where did you land on this convo though, Jordan? I can't remember who you were really riding for.
Well, so I was riding for YB also. However, I understood the Cardi argument for this year specifically, mainly because like going into 2025, I Am Music, whatever you want to call it, like that album was definitely the most anticipated album. Definitely. One of the most anticipated albums of the year. Like it was being teased for like 2 years leading up to it. And I feel like music definitely lived up to the hype, but it lived up to like the beginning of the year was 100% Cardi. Like
yes,
he had the album, he was on tour with The Weeknd. It felt like the Like Weezy, Fine Shit, like those songs felt inescapable in like those first few months of the year. So I think that he had a strong case early, which is why I understood why he was in such high contention in our conversations. But then it just felt like even though MASA wasn't as nearly anticipated as music because YB drops so much and he does so oftentimes without, I feel like, a big lead up. And because YB's like legal situation changed drastically, abruptly in the first quarter of the year, like he got pardoned in March or April, I think.
Yes.
So it was like it was almost out of nowhere from that perspective of like once he was able to move freely, he immediately capitalized on it. Mm-hmm. And you saw that impact. Like you saw like just how people galvanized for that tour. And then when you look at Opium and the Antagonist 2.0 tour, which was also happening, which was also pretty viral, it was like, I would say equal in virality. However, Antagonist 2.0 had all of them. It had Destroy Lonely, it had Ken Carson, it had Cardi, it had Homicide Gang, it had the whole Opium crew, and YB was really just him and his homies. Yes. Like, same amount of people on stage, but like, just him and his homies. And then Antagonist, it was like all these rappers, like this and massive label push, like, it just felt like Opium had the machine and YB just had the people. Literally
the
and
people's champ.
figuratively.
He's 100% the people's champ. Well, one of the things I would say about the clips that I saw too, and this is something I can always tell from a tour. The Antagonist tour, when you see the clips from Cardi's tour, there's a lot of great things of people mosh pitting and wilding out and stuff like that, and that's cool. But in the YB's clips, it's like the people in the nosebleeds are screaming it all the way to the people in the front. It's not just the diehards, it's the whole stadium. It's a stadium full of diehards, which I've never seen in any clip, really, you know? And I think that one. Oh, one other thing I want to talk about too, and this is important for Cardi. We've talked a lot about this, how Cardi has shifted what a rapper is. So we should talk a little bit about where rap is at. Some of the other people we did discuss, who I think will probably end up in the honorable mentions, we talked about Malice and Pusha from Clipse. They put out one of the more a great traditional rap album. I was vouching for Cardi B. I don't think that made it to the cut. I forget who our third person was. But again, I think those type of rappers are obviously more in the lane of rappers when we think of traditional rappers, like, again, the Biggies and the Pac and the Jay-Z's and the DMX's. YoungBoy and Cardi, to me, represent a whole different thing. Cardi especially. Cardi is like not trying to rhyme. He's in a different space. Where has rap kind of shifted in those I think really in the last 5 years with people like Cardi and YB?
Yeah, I mean, I think when you look at like who we consider like second place and third place, whatever, it was Malice and ultimately Cardi, which I think were more like traditional rappers, especially Malice, which just had like as a pure rapper, just like the performance of the year.
Yes.
If you're just looking at like wordplay and lyrical ability and all that stuff, like hands down, I think really with YB and Cardi, what you're seeing is just kind of like rap going to all these different strains.
Yes.
Where a lot of it is, it's not as like lyrically driven. I think a lot of it has to do with just, frankly, younger rappers just punch now instead of kind of like writing down
Bar for bar, yep.
Literally writing down a whole long verse and then trying to perform it in one take. They just punch line by line.
In a drop top with a stolen car, searching for my ops. Hold on. I got my green ass on, trying to get egg. What's happening?
Pretty much how YB kind of just performs, right line, and it does. Yeah, it changes how rap sounds. Right, it's definitely not as like the storytelling isn't. It's more what I'll say from the gut, almost, right? Mm-hmm. And I think a lot of the strength of YB and Carti too is their vocal performances.
Yes,
right?
100%.
And in different ways, where I think Carti's always kind of changing it. We always talk about, baby Carti versus fake future voice Carti, all of that. YB is, I think, similar in that way where what kind of YB song you're getting very early on. And it's
one little wail and where the song is going.
100%, right? You hear like the strain in his voice. You hear if he's angry. You hear if he's sad YB, more experimental YB, which he does experiment a lot, I would say. And so I think that that's like the newer strain of rap where it's definitely way more performance, vocal, and emotionally based versus kind of like lyrically driven.
Yeah, I mean, I think, and again, this is what we were saying, is the fans have resonate with this guy so much because of that. One of the things, again, I was talking about these debates that we've had. One thing that, shout out to Rob Kenner, one of our old editors here at Complex, we were talking about Biggie and Pac. And, he was saying that Biggie was kind of more like a jazz artist and Pac was more like a blues artist. Biggie is more technically proficient. He's definitely has more like clever wordplay and stuff like that. And again, I think the Jay-Z's and people like that fall into that lane. But YB to me is more like the blues artist. And he's been compared to Pac. I also think of people like DMX. Like, they're not the most clever rapper. They don't have the craziest, most intricate wordplay like a Malice or somebody, right? But they definitely, you connect with them on an emotional level. And ultimately, music is about emotion. All art is about emotion. And people connect with him. And that's why I say he is the voice of a generation, because he is saying something that people feel deeply inside. And we've seen this with his fan base, Have you seen this when you were at the show? Did you feel that way?
Yeah, like when I was talking to the fans before, it was because people, you would describe YB's music as like pain music. Like that's what, like colloquially what it would be described as. And you saw it from like the fans of like all like types of diversities, all kind of being like, it feels like YB is talking to me. Like when he performs like one of his emotional songs, Lonely Child, during the show, it's like this moment. Even like whenever his biggest songs like Outside is about how he hates going outside.
It's the perfect Gen Z song. I don't want to go outside. I'm going to be on my phone.
Yeah, and it's
I don't
like,
be outside.
It's like, I see it similarly with like Rod Wave of like artists who are able to tap into this emotion that a lot of teenagers, young adults, people in their 20s, people like around my age who sometimes may not be able to perfectly articulate how they're feeling.
Yes. Similar
to the artists, they are able to channel that through the music, through the beat selection, and like that pain music shit really be hitting. And, it's interesting because you could say something similar with Malice and the Clipse, like, Birds Don't Cry is pain music in a different way.
Yes.
But I think that speaks to a different generation. And that's kind of why, or rather like how they're able to perfectly articulate the, their coping through their losing both of their parents. It's very like precise. It's very like honed through years of doing it type shit, where it's like these artists are younger, but they're able to kind of express it in their own unique way that resonates with people that are similar ages, which I think why he's obviously the people's champ, and like why at these shows you see a lot of people who look like YB, who are around YB's same age, and who are like really resonating with the performances,
Yeah, no, I mean, one of the things you referred to there is just like, just because someone isn't necessarily sophisticated in their delivery or their articulation of their feeling does not mean they don't have that feeling.
100%.
And I think a lot about Raging Bull, another movie about a people's champ, where like they're not very sophisticated in that movie about their emotion. They're just like fighting in apartments and arguing with each other. But the emotion they feel is so real, and that's why I think one of the reasons that movie kind of resonates. One of the things I want to talk about too is the nature of being a cult artist. Obviously, I think both YB and Carti are cult artists, and you know, there have been other massive cult artists. I think most famously, you know, Grateful Dead in rock. You know, there's bands like The Cure, which are like known as cult bands, but they can sell out total stadiums. I think of people like Lana Del Rey, who's like a huge pop star, but doesn't really have like that many hit records on the charts. Her most famous song is like a remix, but they have this emotional connection. And does it feel like rap needs more cult stars? Because this is what rap once was, the regional nature of rap. It seems like we're kind of returning to that.
Well, yeah, it is interesting because, yes, I agree. Like, rap was definitely, just kind of like more cult driven. I think you had obviously like commercial explosion in like the late 90s and 2000s, whatever. And then we kind of grew up in a climate of hit records, right? Where we like the big songs, we all knew it, the big albums, we all knew it. And that seems to be kind of like going away. And what seems like the idea of Drake and Kendrick in 5 years from now might not really exist, and what you really will have is just kind of like these cult artists, if you want, but like the king of their own ecosystems, right? Where they're very locked in their sound, they're very locked in with what their fans want and what they feel, and just like that, and really like not that interested in expansion, right? And kind of like, or caving into certain commercial whims or whatnot. What the joke I always have with YB is like, you hear his music in the locker room, but never in the arena. You know what I'm saying?
That's a great way. That's John Moran will tell you that.
Yeah, right. John Moran, Chris Jones, like, and so that kind of like, it's so odd to see. And, I can understand why, YB is kind of like a cult figure, right? I feel, throughout his career, I feel like he hasn't gotten a lot of mainstream support. He hasn't gotten like a lot of corporate synergy. I think a lot of it has come because of some of off the court stuff to say, or legal troubles.
Definitely a factor.
Yeah, or I think also his music is actually like pretty it's not very aspirational. Whereas so much of the big rap records are like reaching a mountain. Him is just like
he just lives in the mountains in Utah.
He lives in mountain Utah, and he's like he seems a little miserable about it. You know what I'm saying? And
that's true.
Or at least conflicted. And I think that isn't always a universal sell broadly, but like as one-on-one fan engagement for people who really feel it, man, like people you can't get more locked in.
I mean, but to stay to the sports analogies, it's like kind of, I look at the more niche and hyper cults fan bases and stands bases of these artists as like NBA and NFL, in the sense of like, there are people who will really die and ride for NBA players, I feel like more than NFL players, because of the closeness of the quarters that they're playing. Like, obviously, like NFL players have helmets on, they're in stadiums where you're super far away from them, so that's why there's less NFL stars than there are NBA stars.
NBA stars are naked, essentially.
Yeah, because it's like you are, like, if you courtside, even if you fucking like 20 rows up, you're basically right there, type shit. So you're able to like kind of fake interact with these players. I feel like with the rap space, it's like you look at the Osama Sons, the Netspens, the Shays, these like underground kids, quote unquote underground, but they have these rabid fan bases who I think are so tightly knit with them because of what feels like the access that they have, whether it's like being in these smaller venues where it's like you can almost touch them. And even though YB was just doing arenas this past tour, being there compared to like what I saw from the Opium shows, it's like Carti was in the similar arenas. He did the same arenas that YB did, but even his stage design was like he was on a freights in the middle of the arena, elevated in the dark, strobe lights with a whole bunch of people. You could kind of see him, but you kind of couldn't. But YB in the same arena was like, even though he didn't really move around the stage that much, or his stage wasn't erected into the crowd where he was like in the middle of it, it still felt like you were mad close to him. Right. And maybe that's partially because he hasn't been on a tour like this like ever, basically. Yeah. And so it was that feeling of like having not seen this person like this ever, that it felt like you were so close to him. But it felt similar to like feeling that closeness you could be to a NBA player if you're at a game, and then like building that allegiance towards them because you are always able to kind of see them in that way. That's kind of what it reminds me of.
Shout out to Tiana Taylor, worked on the set design for that tour. Well, I want to go back to your thing too. I love what you said about the locker room versus like the game or whatever. This is what I also mean about him not being famous. If and some of these other rappers like Drake and Kendrick, if Fat Joe sits courtside at a lot of Knicks games. There was a time where like the Knicks wouldn't show, like the broadcast wouldn't say Fat Joe was on the side. Nowadays they do because he's become kind of this mainstream figure. NBA could be at the sideline of a Lakers game. He probably wouldn't be, but he could be. The camera wouldn't even know to put the on him. They wouldn't even be like NBA YoungBoys at this show. All the fans would react, but the actual like TNT crew or ESPN or whatever wouldn't even know to show him on the camera.
Now imagine him at a Utah Jazz game, courtside. No one.
Yeah, he loves Larry Markkinen.
You are Complex's best rapper alive of 2025. Let's kind of start there. How does it feel to get that MVP, that trophy?
I feel good. I don't know what it means, but thank you.
Okay, well, one thing I want to talk about too, of course, is that we kind of feel like he broke through last year. Why did he break through last year? Because he's been doing it for the last 7 years. What besides the tour we talked? I think the tour is one of the major factors. What else do you feel like happened for him last year that hasn't happened in the past?
Well, again, I think a part of it is kind of like that redemptive arc, and also, I do think a lot of it, frankly, was the tour where I think it really kind of put a spotlight on something that people weren't so sure. If you asked people in 2003, even as of like YB's getting crazy YouTube streams and numbers and all these certifications, and he has 4 #1 albums, so but I don't think we knew what a YB audience looked like, how big it could be. Like I've loved YB for a while. I've been following his career for a long time. I've never seen him live before this year, and so there was this like, well, what is that experience? I think also, transparently, his crowd is just like a more, almost purely younger black kind of,
Yeah, it was more, when we went to the same show, we went to the show in Newark.
Yeah.
I found the audience to be a little bit more diverse than I thought. But for the longest time, there was a tweet about this that I remember that like, and it's messed up, but it's just like that. YB Honest is like kids who like listen to YouTube on PlayStation and then rage throw their controller at the screen when it doesn't play. Like, which I always thought was kind of unfair because I think his audience is actually much bigger than that. I mean, obviously YouTube is his main place, but it is predominantly he has the actual streets. Like he actually has a black 100%. Audience. He does not have that crossover audience, but he kind of doesn't need it.
No, he definitely doesn't. And I think if anything, it shows kind of like the buying power, which I always felt was like a little undervalued, right? Of like his base, right, of the streets, because, and even there was like the scare quotes about what this crowd is like. It was kind of became a meme of like what the YB crowd was, but I don't know.
They were just kids enjoy. It's just like, bro, you can't let kids enjoy anything anymore.
Yeah, and if anything, because I also went to the Opium, the Opium show felt more angsty, and this one, the energy felt more like.
It was a celebration.
Yeah, 100%, right?
Definitely.
And so, but I think that like there was like a show and prove aspect of it. Like, oh, hold on. Because it really kind of like visualized something that like people would talk about, but like it just never really aligned one-on-one. Yeah, so I don't know. I think the MASA album in itself, I would say, was probably more polarizing and.
You're the biggest MASA fan. Wait, we have to talk about so we talked a lot about the tour. The tour, I think we all agree that the tour is what put him over. I think the clips of it, we all went to the show. We all felt that energy in the room. What's funny because most of our best rapper lives, when you look at it in the years, they're usually tied to an artist putting out either one of or the best album of their career, and it kind of that being the galvanizing point for them. That's not the case with YB. YB put out MASA. Where do you think it is? Do you think it's one of his best albums? I don't think it's one of his best albums.
I think it's what I would say, it's hard, right? Like, is it one of his better, like, it doesn't reach the height of, like, right now, or AI YoungBoy.
Yeah, AI YoungBoy 2 is and AI YoungBoy one of the best ones to me.
100, yeah. It's the album that I think hit the culture the hardest, I would say, throughout his career. And this is a guy who's had #1, #2 albums, whatever. And to me, I think, I don't know, I've just been around to know, like, oh, this is kind of like what a future classic looks like, even if it doesn't feel like one in the moment. And I feel like it's very, like, his audience is very locked in with this album, right? In a way, we saw it live, right? Where, I was surprised how many tracks from MASA he actually performed, and they all kind of, like, hit, right? It wasn't
they knew every word to every song. I couldn't believe it.
There are albums in we saw this a little bit with Triple X, or even kind of, like, like there are these albums where they're very popular with the fans. There's like mainstream wise, there's like a little kind of like
it's cold
confusion.
Yes,
those usually have longer legs, I think. And also, I just think that when you hear MASA, you see all the cultural signifiers. You see the green, you see the mask, you see the American flag, you think about the Trump stuff, you know, you think about like the shot calling video, right? Like there are all of these kind of like images where I say like the top album for YB, it doesn't have the same sort of like, oh, you know, maybe you mentioned a couple, like, you know, but like if this feels like a moment.
Yes.
Now, is it a classic? You know, and one of the arguments I like to make is that the idea of like what a rap classic is nowadays has kind of changed, where it's not really like the tight Illmatics. It's not really like, I don't know, My Dark Twisted Fantasy, these perfect pieces of work. Rap classics now, I think, are more like mixtapes.
Yes, they're sprawling.
They're sprawling. They're kind of like all over the place in a way. They're very experimental. High highs, probably with a lot of like lows. But I think what makes mixtape special is that they were like specifically targeted to like
Yes,
their base, their
to the
streets,
base audience, yes.
and it allowed them to kind of like be a little goofy and play around, and also do, you know, like just test a lot, I would say. And I think, you know, even a song like XXX, which is just like literally a punk song from the 80s.
I love XXX.
Yeah.
My favorite song of the album.
Yeah, you know, it's just like wild to see him do it, you know?
Well, let's talk a little bit about sort of the hallmarks of his style, because this is something that occurs to me with him. My really only knock on MASA is that it's 30 tracks long. And I have a hard time keeping up with him. I have some of these stats. I'm just going to read this off real quick. In his career, he's basically, YB's been out for basically about 10 years, maybe close to 11 if you count some of his other stuff. He has released 35 projects since 2015, 26 mixtapes, 9 studio albums. There's a Spotify complete collection on YB. It is 626 songs, including his new album, Slime Kai. It is 30 hours long. And this is my only one challenge with YB is that I can't keep up with his music sometimes. And I can't. It's interesting that the fine line between what is a good song and a great song and like what is a whatever song. What do you think is the hallmark style? Like, what is the point where you notice that YB is making an actual great song? Because some of his songs are obviously better than others. Is there something that you're looking for?
Yeah, I mean, you know, that's a good question. Like, what am I looking right? Because I do think that high volume artists, rappers, and we've had a lot over the years. We have Gucci, we have, you know, Chief Keef. You know,
he's a volume shooter, like we said. Yeah, he's a volume shooter.
But then what ends up happening is a lot of times they fall into these kind of like templates. So this is like the kind of turn up YB song. This is kind of like the mopey, you know, introspective YB song. And I think a lot of it, and also I think this is another discussion, but I feel like his production, because he produces so much, has gotten like slightly less interesting and just really has fallen into these kind of like templates.
I do wonder what would happen if he made a whole album with like, maybe not Pharrell, but like Metro Boomin or somebody. I've always wondered what would happen if he made a 10 to 15 track album with a producer and was produced. I don't necessarily know he would be into that. I feel like he may resist that. But I think of people like Swiss Beats working with DMX and like knowing how to get through to him and helping him craft it. I do wonder what would happen if he made an album like that.
Yeah. I mean, I think, you know, and I think the YB songs that catch my ears was just like something a little different, a little off, or a little kind, you know, like XXX is a song I love. It's like a good example, right? Or, you know, I even think about some of my favorite YB songs are like freestyles. He has to speak about your production stuff. You know, he has a song where he's rapping over the Tears of Joy, and like that's such an insane beat to me, and then to hear the Rick Ross song, just to hear like that.
It's kind of weird to hear him on that song too.
No, but I love it,
It
right?
is cool,
Because
yeah.
and then, you know, it's stuff like, you know, he has from years ago, one of my favorite YB songs is like, this is for my supporters. This is not a song, it's for my supporters. And it's just so off kiltered, and like his rapping style is so kind of like he's just like purging and like almost like fumbling his words. But there is like, I look for, I guess, like these little signifiers, like, oh, there is something, maybe he's a little angrier, or he's a little more. I also like Dirty Diana too. You know, like
to your point, I think the emotion is the thing, because like, again, I think of this quote. I have this quote here from 2023 that SZA said, and she said, you know, she was talking about music that she likes, and she said, "Black excellence is NBA YoungBoy putting out projects and speaking his heart and screaming into a microphone." And I just feel like there's a certain tenor he gets to where he just is kind of just screaming, and he's just, you know, letting it go. Is there a YB song in particular you connect with, Jordan?
I mean, honestly, I'm not as versed in like the historics of it, but actually like an early one, Free D-Dog, is like probably my favorite YB song, and it's like a early joint, just because it's like it keeps all the blemishes on it. Like there's like a part towards the end where he's like, get off me. Nah, like, let me finish. Like as if like someone is holding him back from getting jumped. It's like, even those theatrics, you think of YB as this like very stoic and serious person. But I think that his like mannerisms and like these subtle but very funny theatrics give these splashes of color to his projects, to his performances. Like, he has like that dance where he's like this that he'll be doing like on like on stage to some of his songs. Like, there's TikToks to YB songs and you don't often associate NBA YoungBoy with TikTok or TikTok trends.
Well, the right foot creep meme is one of the big parts of him. Yes,
like
definitely.
He does these funny, goofy dances because it's almost like he doesn't take himself as seriously as some of his. As his persona would make it seem, or like
he's not a self-serious guy.
Yeah, not at all. And I think that reflects in some of my favorite joints of his, and that's what makes them different. That's what helps me differentiate all of the music he drops.
Yeah,
because sometimes you could get lost in the sauce of it.
You definitely get lost in the sauce. Well, I will say my favorite YB song of all time is "Make No Sense." A nod to Gucci Mane in it. Like, I feel like I'm Gucci Mane in 2006. But also a song that, again, like to your point, it's just like, he has this anger that's coming off, and it's also this like recklessness to him. It's just like, it makes no sense. You're a platinum rapper. Why are you still in the bricks? It's like, no, I'm still in the fucking bricks because I gotta be here. Like, this is me. This is where I need to be. Well, we talked about this a little bit. I'm gonna come back to one other thing because you mentioned this, Jordan, and I really want to hone in on this. Is why does this generation connect to him in particular? One of the things I think happened last year is a lot of people, the older generation and some of the rap kind of gatekeepers, the Joe Buns of the world, kind of recognized how big YB actually is. And they saw those same clips that we're talking about from the show, and they're like, wow, this guy is big, and they kind of finally had to give him the credit, like, he is the man. But he does resonate with this Gen Z in particular, and I'm kind of curious, why do you feel that is?
I think because a lot of his music is on YouTube. And, like, YouTube is a really big music discovery platform for, I think, a lot of people in this generation. Also, just, like, even when I was talking to YB for the story, he was saying that he was like watching a Guns N' Roses tour video, like when he was on tour. When I was asking him like if he was watching anyone else to prepare or whatnot, he was like, nah, I just be like randomly watching like Guns N' Roses. And I was like, why Guns N' Roses? He was like, it was just on YouTube. He was like, I was just
the algorithm recommended it to him.
Yeah, he was like, it was just popped up on my YouTube and I fucked with it. And I think that's kind of how a lot of people earlier on discovered YB.
Right.
Where it was like you have the YouTube algorithm that when you're just playing music, it'll just play something that you might like, or it will direct you to a song that's similar to the song that you were just listening to. Kind of how, like, I remember like when I was first like discovering music early on, like that's how I found mad shit from SoundCloud.
Right.
It was like I would like find a artist I liked, and then after their playlist was done, it would just direct me to another song or another artist that sounded kind of similar that I would also probably like. And that's how I found like mad random deep cut songs of artists that I fuck with now. And I think that that's the same with YB and this generation is, yes. So funny enough, like even I remember for Slime Cry this past weekend, people were like getting scared that he was gonna not drop it, but he dropped it first on YouTube like an hour before he put it on streaming platforms.
For my fans, my core
fans.
fans.
Like so he even drops his albums first on YouTube before he puts them on streamers because he knows that that's where his fans really consume it. And like one of my best friends, LJ, he's like the diehard YB fan of like my life. Where like he put me on the YB. I want to say like in 2018, 2019 is when he like first put him on my radar just because he would play him all the time. But it would always be on YouTube. Like when we were in the car, like we'd always hear ads and shit because like that'd be on the aux. But it'd be like the next song would be after an ad on YouTube. So it was never on the streaming platforms. And I think that speaks to, again, like YB's size that may not be as obvious to some people who aren't there. It's similar with Rod Wave. It's like people don't realize what Rod Wave,
one of the biggest stars in
can
music,
do arena tours because a lot of his audience will consume him on YouTube. He's this very like YB, just quiet, not an obvious rap star, could probably walk around in a mall and not be recognized. That's what YB also said during our interview was like, I asked him like, why doesn't he feel like he's a rap superstar? And he was like, because I could like walk in a mall and I can not get bothered.
They're not gonna know. Wait. We'll talk a little bit about the YouTube thing, and I want to get into that. But let's talk a little bit about your cover because you mentioned this. You just did our cover story on YB. You went out to Utah.
Yes.
What was the experience like, and what was it like just being in the presence of YB, you know?
Yeah. Well, first, big shout out to the coverage team and to our crew out in Utah because it was a long ass day. So the original idea was that we went to a ski resort and we were going to go on a ski lift and do the interview partially in the ski lift, like go take a ride all the way up to the top of the mountain and then finish the interview at like a lodge at the top of the mountain. That was the plan. YB's call time was like noon. You know,
What time did he show up? What time did he?
The call time was noon. He showed up at like 6:30, 7.
Okay, he's only like 7 hours late.
But yeah, so that was the original plan. Obviously, plans changed because he had arrived late, and it pivoted to us doing the interview in a townhouse in the ski resort that we had gotten that day, which was honestly the best case scenario because even though he lives in Utah and he likes being outside, he hates the cold. Like the first thing that happened once he arrived and he was ready was he told me and our producer Tommy to come in the room. Like his rep told us, not the crew, just y'all two, so y'all could explain what's about to happen type shit. So we walk in and YB is just like standing in like the corner of the room. No words, just like standing and like surveying who's stepping into his space. So like we approach and we're like, yo, what's up? This is what we're gonna do. We're gonna sit down, do the interview. And before, his rep was like, he wants to do a part of it outside. So we have to figure out some way to incorporate outside. I'm like, all right. So I was like, look, we're gonna sit down, we're gonna do the first half inside, then we're gonna go take a walk around the ski resort, and then we're gonna come back inside and finish the interview. He didn't say anything, and then they were like, okay, bring everybody in. Whatever. So whatever, we do the interview, we go outside, 5 minutes in, he's like, nah, we gotta go inside. I'm like, how do you live in Utah and you wanted to be outside, but you hate the cold? He was like, because like also the room had to be at like 85 degrees. Like that was on his rider. It was like the room had to be at
85?
It was hot as hell.
Shit.
And we had a motherfucking fireplace. It was hot. It was hot. And I still had my ski gear on because I was expecting to be
had the goose on?
outside. I was mad, like bundled up and shit.
Ski mask on, everything.
Yeah, it was hot in there. But I was like, what's up with that? He's like, and I'm so like, this is not disrespectful, but like his hugs are so funny. But he's like, it just feels free. like I was like, what do you like about Utah? He was like, it feels free. It feels like freedom. Like,
That's real shit.
Which is real, but
That's
like
real,
there were those little moments where he would say these things that sounded simple, but like were actually like fake profound. Like
They are profound. Well, one of the things I've always found with him speaking, also this happened in your interview with him at Barclays, where he thanks Complex for like the
Yeah.
coverage. And also I felt this way at the show too. He does the whole show. He does 50 songs. He says nothing to the audience. He just plays the song. He doesn't even say, let's go, what up, nothing. He just goes right into the song. At the very end of the show, he very sincerely is like, thank you for fucking with my music. I love y'all. And it was like, it sounded, and the same way in your interview when you interviewed him at Barclays backstage, he was like,
Oh no, I just wanted to tell Complex, specifically Complex, thank you for following my journey.
thank you guys for rocking with me. And it's like, yo, of course we rock with you. Like,
yeah, like I asked him, when you stare out into the crowd, like you have these moments during your show where you'll just not say shit and just stare. And I'm like, what do you be thinking about? Like, what is in your mind? And he was like, are they having a good time? But it's like that, even those little moments of thoughtfulness of being like, he genuinely cares a lot about his supporters, because I think he realizes that these are the people that brought him to this stage. It wasn't the industry. There's the whole blackball conversation of like, because of his legal issues and because of like the type of music he makes, it's not like you're going to see YB in a Ruffles commercial. You feel me? Like,
that's exactly.
You're not,
never be in a
you're not
Ruffles
going to see him on a Pepsi commercial. He's like a brand risk in a unique way where it's like people, even with his success now, like, I don't even really know if Shot Cohen's on radio like that. So it's like,
definitely not. He hasn't really had radio success. Like that.
So he doesn't get that mainstream support or like that industry machine push. But these fans really got him out the mud with it. And so I think when he sees that, and he sees people really come out and support him in person, which is a different level of commitment than just listening to your music or streaming it, I think he really appreciates that. And you could tell,
Yeah, I mean, the industry thing we should talk about too, because he is signed to a label. I mean, he was signed to Atlantic.
Yes,
he originally signed
yes.
to Atlantic, had a $2 million deal, 5-album deal. He obviously put out way more than 5 albums. He was renegotiating his deal in 2022. Atlantic offered him $25 million, and he turned it down, and allegedly got a $60 million deal with Motown, which makes sense because he is worth it. He's definitely, I think, going going to recoup on that deal. And he still is signed to them, but he doesn't get the radio play. Doesn't really, and it's interesting because labels in the last 10 years or so have kind of retreated from even doing management, A&R, anything. It's just all up to the artist. And YB is a case of like, the artist knows what he's doing, just let the artist make music and put it out and they'll figure it out. And he has figured it out. It has worked for him. But one of the reasons why is the YouTube stuff. So I want to talk a little bit about YouTube here. So YouTube secretly is the biggest social media platform and also the biggest music platform. And I think in the last 10 years or so, we've had a lot of conversations and complications about social media where people, their feelings about Facebook and Twitter and TikTok have changed. Their public approval kind of goes up and down. YouTube has the highest approval rating of any platform. Everybody likes YouTube. Your mom uses YouTube. My daughter watches YouTube. Like, everybody watches YouTube. And YB is really the master of YouTube. And to your point where your friend was playing it and they're still playing the ads, the audience that he's able to garner is audience who doesn't want to play for Spotify. Even though it's only $10 a month, they're like, no, I'm not paying 10. Your boy's like, Dad, I'm not paying 10 bucks. I'm paying it for free. I'll listen to these ads if I can get to YB. So can you talk a little bit about how rap and, YouTube in particular has kind of helped rap in the last 10 years?
Yeah, I mean, what you speak about is just like ad-supported streaming versus subscription supported streaming. And yeah, I mean, I think, on any given day, right, if someone looked at the charts, you get a snapshot of what, music sounds like nowadays. I always found it interesting that I could look at the Billboard charts and I could look at YouTube charts and it tells like a vastly different story.
Yes.
Right? And all of this is just two different metric. Billboard is getting like a bunch of different sources, including YouTube. Well, not now, but
not
before.
Anymore. The YB rule, the new YB rule. They took out YouTube.
They took out YouTube, right? And they took them out partially because YouTube feels like, they weren't being weighted in the same way that a subscription stream would be weighted. But if you look on any given day, look on like a YouTube chart, so what's streaming that week, that day, it's YB. It's like YN Lucci.
It's like EBK,
J. Wu.
Definitely.
It's like, it's frankly, it's a lot of street rap.
Street rap, yes.
Right? Which communicates, I think, not only about the style of rap you hear, but also, frankly, about the audience, right?
Yes.
And the social economic factors that are involved. And, this has always been kind of like YB's home, right?
Yes.
YouTube. And frankly, you can see it in the comments. I think there's been years and years of jokes about like...
YB better?
Well, why be better? But also, like, YouTube comments being the place where people have, like, oh, I listened to this song when my uncle died, and I feel, and, like,
Yes.
YouTube, YB's videos are just flooded with these kind of, like, and so you could really, I think, feel, like, the emotional, this is, like, where his fans go.
Community.
Yes.
To your point about kind of, like, this being the social, like, a media platform, this is where... Not only are they engaging with his work, and he's like you said, he's a high producer. So not only is he on YouTube, not only you could put out your official stuff, but you could put out like illegitimate music in the sense of like freestyles or stuff that didn't go through a process. And so it's like the hub for everything YB, right? Every video, every song, and yeah, I think that no artist, a lot of rappers, frankly, have used YouTube as a hub and gotten great popularity, but YB has like really mastered it. I think, frankly, the labels that he's been signed to have also like played into this kind of like idea that like he is kind of like the street's favorite.
Yeah.
I think it always helped him, right? And
well, one thing I'll say about his YouTube thing versus his Spotify, like on Spotify, and he just put out SoundCloud, so I looked this up. He has 20 million monthly listeners, which is sometimes a misleading stat, but he has 20 million monthly listeners. That makes him 450th most popular artist in the world, which isn't really that high. But on YouTube, he has 30 videos with over 100 million plays. He has allegedly over 15 billion views if you add up all of his views, which is crazy. And I think the thing that I wanted to hone in on here too is the socioeconomic part, because one of the things that I think streaming I was hoping would fix, but it kind of hasn't, is when we grew up with the mixtape era, it was never counted. Even the Dat Piff era, right? They never count that on the Billboard. But it's like, I was connecting just as much to like Dream Chasers 2 as anything else. Like that was my most played album of the year or whatever, but it doesn't show up on the Billboard charts. Some of that has changed with streaming, but now because they're changing the rules again, where it's like they care about people who buy something. If you buy the vinyl, it counts more than if I played the album. But like clearly the people who play these YB albums care way more about them they play those songs and they're connecting with them. But because they didn't pay for them, or they're on the free tier, or because they had ad support, like, it doesn't count. And it's just, to me, it's always just kind of a messed up way the industry has always worked.
Yeah, I think it 100%. And I think you nailed it. Where like in the mixtape era, you would just have these hugely popular
groundswell of artists.
Like hundreds of thousands of mixtapes sold or moved in the streets, and those songs would even hit radio, but they never really counted officially on the record. And I mean, I think. It definitely it's the counting is off, I would say, right?
And I want to get into this a little bit too. So there was a headline that came out last week about the Recording Industry Association of America, the RIAA. Now, they announced that YB had more certifications than any other rapper ever, which means he's made more gold and platinum songs and albums than anyone else in the genre. More than Drake, more than Jay-Z, more than Eminem, more than everyone. But this is where it gets a little tricky, where you got to look at the numbers a little more carefully. So I was taking a look at this. So he has the most gold records of any artist ever, except for Elvis. Elvis has 126, he has 126, and Elvis has 155. Number 3 is Kanye. He has 103. But what's interesting is, again, this is when we say the cult. The cult kind of gets a little smaller when you go along. When you go to platinum albums, he doesn't have the most platinums. The most platinum albums is Drake. Drake has 96 platinum albums, or songs and albums, I should say. Elvis has 84, and YB has 59. Well, YB is actually number 7 on that list. When you go to multi-platinum records, he's tied, actually, with The Weeknd and Uzi. And, Weeknd and Uzi have a lot of multi-platinum records. They're all tied for 20th, and they all have 20. I'm sorry, they have 20 multi-platinum songs or albums. But the interesting thing about him is he has no diamond records or albums. Like Weeknd, Uzi, Drake, Post Malone, Travis, they all have diamond records. YB has never gotten all the way there, which is why when you actually add up the numbers just on certified units, Drake is number 1 all time with 331. Taylor Swift is at 247. YB only has 123, which still puts him in the top 25 of all time, which is still incredible. And just for reference, again, Lil Wayne has 120, so he has more than Lil Wayne, but he has less than Travis Scott. Travis Scott is 155 all time. So it's just interesting to me, again, like there's a sizable audience, but again, it doesn't get to that 5 million, 10 million range.
Yeah, my question, I always think about this, is like, and to me, they're just two different metrics. What's a more important metric for a rapper's success? Their reach, or or an individual's like impact, or kind of like engagement levels?
Yes, engagement.
Right, better way to put it. And I would half jokingly, but not really, I would always say that, well, if you just compare the last 10 years of Drake and YB, reach, Drake is obviously so much bigger. But when you engagement level, I don't know, man, right? Like, and then it's up to you or someone to determine what value system you prefer.
Man, look, to put a bow on it, man, fuck all this number talk, bro. I'll keep it a bean. I'll keep it a stat. Like, I hate motherfuckers talk about some monthly listener, this, numbers, that shit annoys the fuck out of me.
I had to pull up some
This
stats.
is an opinion-based sport. I know everybody wants to put numbers on shit so we can really, like, put the metrics to it. Fuck that, bro. This is rap, bro. This is not fucking basketball, football, whatever, a sport where you could rate motherfuckers' rings, trophies, or whatever. This is an opinion-based sport. So it's like when motherfuckers put their whole life on the line for the Spotify monthly listeners, I think the RIAA certifications are different because that points to sales wholesale. But it's like motherfuckers talk about, oh, so-and-so got 100 million Spotify monthly listeners. How many does your fave have? Like, it's fucking annoying, bro. But whatever.
I agree. But, I'm a journalist. I'm going to have to do it. We're going to have to wrap up soon. I'm going to do just a quick few things here. One of the things I would love to talk about is predecessors and successors for this. Who do you think are some of the predecessors? Interesting. I want to shout out to John Caramanica, longtime friend of mine, over at the New York Times. He had wrote a piece about YB. He went to a bunch of the shows. He was comparing him to Tupac. And I get the Tupac comparison. The person that I was kind of comparing him a little bit more to is DMX. I just think because of DMX and him have a similar early life history where they are definitely going through they were definitely institutionalized, were in group homes, a lot of legal troubles and all that. And despite that, I think of those very famous clip of DMX at Woodstock 99 performing. Like, that's what the YB show is like, where everybody is locked into this one guy on stage. And he also cites different, artists that he is fans of, especially Baton Rouge artists like himself, Boosie, Gates, Kevin Gates, Lil Fat. Lil Fat's interesting. I'm not really up on Lil Fat. Are you up on Lil Fat?
He was in fact, I remember reading that like it was basically when they asked like who do you fuck with, it was like he said Lil Fat, who I think tragically got killed. He was with Boosie.
Yes, he was with
tragically
Boosie,
got killed in 2012. But yeah, Louisiana artist, pretty dope.
Yeah, and I think the successor people for him, I mean, definitely Rod Wave. We talked about the pain rap aspect. I think Playboi Carti, just in terms of his sort of the style of his fan base. I don't know if you guys know the guy Headband. He got the song Boo, which totally sounds like a YB song. I hope Headband works out for him. We'll see what happens with his career. But I'm kind of curious what you guys think in terms of the future of rap. Is there going to be more rappers like YoungBoy, or is he just a particularly unique case?
There will be more rappers like YoungBoy.
Why do you think that?
When I think about who came before YB, I think DMX and Tupac stylistically are good comps, but I also just think of figures like Gucci, Chief Keef.
Yes.
Maybe even Thug a little bit, but these are just like more they were cultish figures who just produced at a high volume, were highly skilled in their own way, and had this like one-on-one kind of like a relationship with their fans, and that that expanded. And I think that YB and that sort of like street rap is like it's just not going anywhere. And rap is getting more splittered. It's getting more. It's not as big, and I think frankly rappers are less interested in becoming kind of like the Super Bowl stage and like more comfortable and like, yo, I'm getting this much and this much and I'm getting this much money and
to do
my
this,
fans love, and it's like why would I change that, bro?
Well, is that to me, rap didn't lose its mainstream appeal, it just became co-opted by the mainstream.
Yes.
And rap lost its countercultural edge, and street rappers are actually countercultural.
100%, right? So, it's not a coincidence that YB is viewed controversially, right? And I think that plays to his kind of like counterculture frame, aspect.
What do you say, Jordan? Do you think that's the future of rap, more like rap like that?
Yeah, definitely. I mean, as like we were saying, like as these niche regional artists become larger and larger and their fan bases grow with them, and then they slowly start to get a more mainstream appeal, but they have this really strong base around them. I think that's what artists are also looking to have, is like core fans that will always be loyal to them because they were with them from the beginning, but have grown to the scale where it doesn't even matter if YB doesn't tour again or whatever, it's like he's still with the massive. He doesn't have this viral year that he just had again.
Oh, sounds about right. Well, I want to thank both of our guests today, Dimas and Jordan, for joining us on the Fast Rapper Live podcast. Shout out to YB Better. Thank you guys for joining us, and I'll see you next time.